Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina wa Nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi al-tahirin wa sahbihi al-muntajabeen. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajjal farajah. Sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Before I start, I think it's opportune and appropriate to ask everyone to recite Surah Al-Fatiha for the soul of the martyrs and the innocent lives lost in Gaza and everywhere else. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The surah, or the chapter we're going to focus on today is Surah Al-Ma'un. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أرأيت الذي يكذب بالدين فذلك الذي يدع اليتيم ولا يحض على طعام المسكين فويل للمصلين الذين هم عن صلاتهم ساهون الذين هم يراءون ويمنعون الماعون. Have you seen the one who belies reward and punishment? He it is who drives away the orphan and urges not the feeding of the poor. So devastating would be to those who pray, who are indifferent to their prayer, who put on pretentious display and are stingy even in ordering ordinary items of common sense. Chapter 107 in the Holy Quran, Surah Al-Ma'un. This surah has two themes, a central theme and a secondary themes that go with it as a consequence of the central theme. In common to other surahs, whether Surah Quraysh or Surah Fil and few other chapters in the Holy Quran, this surah reminds the Quraysh or the hypocrites of Quraysh that if they are benefiting from their life in Mecca, it's part of that total theme. They are not entitled to this benefit. What they are being given is due to the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has fulfilled the initial prayer and supplication of Prophet Ibrahim when he brought Ismail and Hajar to the Holy Land and left them over there and asked that their descendant will be blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The central theme in this chapter, which starts practically the first verse, is the effect of the consequence of not believing in the hereafter and ma'ad. And what happens when people do not believe in ma'ad. That's the central theme. So this is the objective that Quran is trying to deliver. Whether it is, as people have I argued, whether it is a Makki or a Madani, it's neither here nor there. Although most commentators have indicated that if you look at the size of the surah, so small, and focusing on the fundamental principles of Tawheed, Ma'ad and Nubuwwah, clearly is a sign that this surah was revealed in Mecca. Others have come, within the commentators, have come and somehow tried to bridge the gap between Mecca and Medina, and they said most of the verses were revealed in Mecca, 1 or 2 of them with regard to the prayer was revealed in Medina, because prayer became obligatory in Medina, and the concept of hypocrisy was an issue that after the social structure was established in Medina, that the concept of hypocrisy became a critical issue. And so it has to be from Medina. Other commentators have responded to this, that granted special type of prayer that we have as a 5 daily prayers, where they came to be obligated during the period in Medina, but if we go and go through the Quran, we can see various verses in the Holy Quran clearly indicating and referencing to Salat, both in the life of Prophet Ismail and in the life and in the supplication of Prophet Ibrahim, so that some kind of a prayer was there. It doesn't have to be referenced exactly as the form of prayer that we have in the 5 daily prayers. So that's how they have responded to it. Who this verse is in reference to, I think we need to clarify this position. Islam came and in what I call the mercantile social structure, where land and money dominated. As we have it today, money talks. So those days, whoever had the land and the wealth, automatically economic wealth and possession translated as political power. And as a result, the 3 famous Abu Sufyan, Abu Lahab and Abu Jahl played a major role in the formation of or the structure of the political life of Bani Hashim or Quraysh, because they possessed Tabbat Yada Abi Lahab bin Matab, in the story that we have discussed this in the past. And the story of Abu Jahl, some people claim that this Ma'un is a condemnation or chastising Abu Sufyan, despite the fact that he was wealthy and would make a pretension and riyah of killing and slaughtering a number of camels and distributing them between the poor, not the poor, the rich and the upper class society of Quraysh, to show off. Yet when an orphan comes and asks for a little bit of meat or anything else, are chased away with power, because the orphans don't represent an image for him. So this is an issue that talks about Abu Sufyan as one of the trio of these 3 landowners, wealth and wealthy individuals in society. Now, if we talk about Ma'ad, after the concept of Tawheed as the first central theme and most important theme in the what we call Usul al-Din, Ma'ad is the next one that has close to 1,200 verses in the Holy Quran focusing on the concept of Ma'ad in one way or the other. In Surah Nisa, verse 83, Allahu la ilaha illahu, that's the concept of Tawheed. La yajma'annakum ila yawm al-qiyamah la rayba fi. This notion of return to Allah, which Ma'ad means awd, from the word awada, or return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Return in the literal sense, but in the specifically return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and after termination of this life. And in al-Ladin, not only we have the concept of Ma'ad outlined and underscored repeatedly, that it is inevitable, something that is going to happen and there is no escape from it. There is another issue that in number of verses in the Holy Quran, we see that the concept of ma'ad, or the absence of the belief in ma'ad, indicated as having a number of consequences. Number one is forgetfulness with regard to social responsibility. Those people who do not believe in the Day of Judgment, in the hereafter, and do not believe in accountability, they do not feel socially responsible towards other members, the poor and the needy within the society. And this is where Surah Al-Ma'un comes in. أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ. That's the first time. Haven't you seen the person who denies or considers this false, the belief in the hereafter? By the way, we have to make, this is another issue, the concept of ma'rifah and knowledge. We all know that life comes to an end one day. We constantly go to various mosques, we go attend Fatiha, Asabi, and so on. But we go in and out, never having any concrete effect in our life in changing the way we organize our life. That's what we call knowledge. Knowledge, that belief is a different story. Ma'rifah, and we go to a famous hadith, man arafa nafsah arafa rabbah, or ma'rifah is a totally different issue. Is an absolute conviction in the heart that literally dictates everything that we do. And ma'rifah here of the Day of Judgment means knowing fully well, not only on an epistemic level, that I know eventually something is going to happen, but deep down conviction in the heart that one day, it could be any minute, the life, the blessing of Allah given to us will come to an end, and we have to go through a certain process and ultimately stand before the sacred court and be accountable for what we have done. The concept of this ma'rifah and the effect of it, Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah salam alayhi in Nahj al-Balagha, khutbah 99, makes a comment. عند المساورة للأعمال القبيحة, when you are tempted, around the end, if you're looking at the khutbah, around the end of it, when you are tempted by evil deeds. This is the concept of ma'rifah versus knowledge. اذكروا هادم اللذات ومنغض الشهوات وقاطع الأمنيات. Remember death and departure. But instead of saying death and departure, Imam says, remember what destroys the nafs al-ammara and everything else that nafs is making it nice and easy for us. وَمُنَغِّضَ الشَّهَوَاتِ, and the desires are destroyed. وَقَاطَعَ الْأُمْنِيَاتِ, this wish that we had this to happen, they are all stopped. So عند المساورة للأعمال القبيحة, one of the condition, one of the Quran, if you look at the verses in the Holy Quran and a hadith that we have, literature, there are a number of consequences that the belief in the hereafter should have in our life. Number one, it defines and gives meaning to the life. Life becomes meaningful rather than it's a simplest 60, 70, 80 years of just constant struggle and then finishing with it and nothing beyond it. Life becomes meaningful, that now I have something to struggle for, and that is the concept of the hereafter. It helps in being able to control nafs al-ammara and ego and desires that are out of control. And khutbah that I recited, it goes under this section, that remembering death should help us in being able to stay away from sinfulness. And also feeling responsible both towards how we structure our own life on a personal level and how we should be responsible to the life of others, the social responsibility. So this verse, when it says أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ, the first verse, haven't you seen the person that denies the hereafter? By the way, the fact that some commentators have taken deen here not to indicate as religion or a way of life, but specifically the day of judgment, is because there are some other precedent in the verses of the Holy Quran. In Surah Al-Hamd, for example, Maliki Yawmiddin, they say that this is in reference to the day of judgment, and is in a clear indication that a person who denies the existence of ma'ad, and this is something that Jahili mindset would not accept. They had some wishy-washy idea about God. Even the issue of idols that they worship, they said that we worship them to get us closer to Allah. Some kind of concept of the divine being did exist. But the idea that after death, our body is going to be completely disintegrated and we are resurrected once again on the day of judgment, or there is a day of judgment, is something that they could not swallow. This is why we have so many verses in the Holy Quran, particularly at the early part, focusing after Tawheed on the issue of Ma'ad, that it is inevitable. It's going to happen whether we like it or we don't. The relationship between forgetting the day of judgment, again in the Holy Quran there are many verses, forgetting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, forgetting the day of judgment, and going being misguided in our life. Again, these are verses in the Holy Quran. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَضِلُّونَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ شَدِيدٌ بِمَا نَسَوْا يَوْمَ الْحِسَابِ. Those who go deviate from the right path, ultimately on the day of judgment they are going to have punishment. For what? Because they forgot the day of judgment and Yawm al-Hisab, the day of accountability. So this surah, while it falls within the same theme of reminding people of Quraysh and the Arab of Jahiliyyah, for the time being we see the rest of them are still living in Jahiliyyah, forgetting about the day of judgment and not feeling responsible for socially responsible for the plight of the others is interconnected. So the other examples, فَذَلِكَ الَّذِي يَدُعُّ الْيَتِيمِ, da' means to push with force, and we have in a number of verses in the Holy Quran, يَوْمَ يُدَعُّونَ إِلَى نَارِ جَهَنَّمَ دَعًّا. Those who were deviant and disobedient in the day of judgment, once they get to the day of judgment, they shall be sternly shoved into the fire. So the concept of pushing away with force of yatim and the orphaned, despite the fact that the orphaned, the miskin, the poor and the others, these are socially deprived, and there is a section, a portion of our wealth that belongs to them. They are entitled to him. وَفِي أَمْوَالِهِمْ حَقٌّ لِلسَّائِلِ وَالْمَحْرُومِ. That portion for the poor and the needy, they are entitled to it. You are not giving them out of generosity. This is what is our duty, to give it to them. And yet these people, they push and shove the poor and the needy away. Why? Because it doesn't fit the image. Everything is done for the sake of the image. Riya. Even the prayers that we have, they offer, it's not done properly. beyond, as another verse in the Holy Quran says, that it is that their prayer is nothing more than clapping and some kind of showing off in pretension that they go through. وما كان صلاتهم عند البيت إلا مكاء وتصدية. That nothing but whistling and clapping, reduces this as totally useless thing, because it wasn't done for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are other, if you go and look at the concept of yatim, the phrase itself, and the orphans in Mu'jam al-Mufahras, which is a book of verses in the Holy Quran based on words, and you see a number of verses that exist in Quran regarding how critical it is to honor the orphan within the society as a sign of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In Surah Al-Fajr, verse number 17, كَلَّا بَلْ لَا تُكْرِمُونَ الْيَتِيمِ. On the Day of Judgment, people ask for their benefit of the work that they had done. No way, you are not going to be given. You did not honor the orphan in your life. One of the classic questions that we will be asked about the miskin. فَذَلِكَ الَّذِي يَدُعُّ الْيَتِيمِ. The person who has disbelief on the Day of Judgment has the audacity to push away the poor and the needy, and push with force. Again, the relationship between i'ta, giving for the sake of Allah, and fulfillment of the responsibility, and not giving because of denial of the Day of Judgment. There is another one, another verse, فَأَمَّا مَنْ أَعْطَى وَاتَّقَى وَصَدَّقَ بِالْحُسْنَى. You give at the same time that you believe on the Day of Judgment. They go together. فَسَنُيَسِّرُهُ لِلْيُسْرَى. Then you have a good reward. وَأَمَّا مَنْ بَخِلَ وَاسْتَغْنَى. They become miser, tight-fisted. They don't give for the sake of Allah. We are most generous in everything that we do. As soon as somebody comes to us and says, look, there is a portion of your wealth that you're supposed to provide for the poor and the needy, we become tight-fisted, and we start creating all these fictitious imaginary accounts, finding pennies from here there to reduce the amount that we want to give for the poor. وَأَمَّا مَنْ بَخِلَ وَاسْتَغْنَى. You see how tight-fistedness and وَكَذَّبَ بِالْحُسْنَى, and then the denial of the hereafter are connected together. فَسَنُيَسِّرُهُ لِلْعُسْرَى. Then the punishment will be their reward. Those who believe, generous with the poor, with their giving to the poor and the needy, they will be rewarded amply. And those who become tight-fisted, miser, and they deny the hereafter, it becomes a source of problem for them on the Day of Judgment. Immediately as the verse moves to one social responsibility of the orphans, and we have so many verses, by the way, in the Holy Quran regarding this concept of the support of the poor and the needy, particularly the orphans in the Holy Quran. We have Surah Nisa, Baqarah 220, Nisa 2 to second and third verse, An'am 6:150, which is chapter 6 152, etc., etc. And these, the best thing is to go to Mu'jam al-Mufahras, and you go for verse say that deals with yatim or orphans, and see how many verses come out. Or you go for miskin, or root that goes for ta'am, فَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. These are all verses that have been narrated in the Holy Quran. But I think this is something that comes out. So the first, the central theme in this chapter is the fact that denying the hereafter, the importance of ma'ad in our life, believing in it, the belief, not knowledge. Islam makes a distinction. Tawheed, again, we know that we should pray for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and nothing else. But do we believe in that concept, or it's just simple knowledge? Because it makes a distinction, or it has consequences. Those who simply know it and without having a deep effect, and this is inshallah the theme that we will address next week when we go to Sayr and Suluk al-Irfan. Those who believe in it, it becomes the foundation of their faith and in everything that they do for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in prayer in Surah Al-Hamd, when we stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. Those who say it simply because they have knowledge in some kind of a tawheed, they can say it and go through it. This is why we say in a number of hadith that shirk comes in. You really don't believe in it. You don't say with deep conviction. But those who say it with deep conviction, that they are offering this prayer for the sake of Allah and nobody else, that is the difference. So with regard to ma'ad, it's the same thing. Believing versus knowledge of the ma'ad. It should make huge amount of difference, such a belief. And there are a number of, as I said, a number of ahadith that has giving meaning to life, controlling nafs al-ammara, checking on ourselves and controlling ourselves and being socially responsible towards others, and a number of other things. Being able to be patient in front of calamities that we وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Patience is a critical factor, that when there is a path clearly designed, you have to persevere. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا. Istiqamah means to be patient and persevere and not to give up. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends malaika on them, etc. So this issue of Surah Al-Ma'idah, the first ayah, أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ, is a reference to the concept, the critical importance of ma'ad. The rest of them, the other parts of the surah, are simply the consequence of negation or not believing in the hereafter. One becomes disrespectful to the poor. One becomes absent-minded to our responsibility to the socially deprived and others within the society. وَلَا يَحُضُّ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ. They do not even urge others. Not only they don't do it themselves, they don't even urge others to feed the poor. فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ. Wrath of Allah would come to those who pray any type of prayer. But الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ, the meaning of the prayer is forgotten, and they do it الَّذِينَ هُمْ يُرَاءُونَ, this riya and ostentatious and showing off. You see them coming out on the first line of the prayer, first lane, standing to do the prayer. They even criticize you if your feet was put left on right or right on left, that this is against istihbab, rather than focusing on the meaning of the prayer itself. وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاعُونَ. This is something that it's a metaphorical use of, used in the Quran. I'm sure that in Lebanese culture, we had it in Iraqi culture and other cultures. Neighbors tend to lend each other utensils or some basic things that, particularly the ones that have close, say, windows to each other. عليه بدي ملح. Or they go upstairs بدي بصلة, or مثلا pot or something of these kind of things that they could cook with it. This is normal interaction between neighbors. Quran says, الَّذِينَ هُمْ يُرَاءُونَ. They show off in the prayers. وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاعُونَ. They sink to the level that even they are so stingy in the ordinary items of common use, they prevent an exchange of these kind of things. Why do you have to lend a pot to your neighbor, or utensil to your neighbor, or give a little bit of salt to your neighbor? This is the sign of stinginess, as a consequence of denying the hereafter, and ultimately literally being tight-fisted and forgetting that this is a social responsibility that we have towards other people. So the idea, if you look at verses in the Holy Quran, whether it was revealed for Abu Sufyan or anybody else, it's neither here nor there. It's simply, they become the mere examples, but in a general level it covers everybody. Ma'ad, belief in Ma'ad has positive consequences, and the absence of such a belief has some negative consequences. Particularly it becomes clear in tight-fistedness, miserliness, and the dealing with the poor and the needy within the society. I'll stop here, and inshallah we deal any question. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.